Gen Z has a new favorite flex. Doing nothing for 8 hours straight. No phone, no movie, no music. You're not weak if that sounds unbearable. Your brain built an alarm for exactly this. Here's what's actually happening. And it's not the flex anyone filming it thinks it is. In the early 1950s, scientists paid students $20 a day for this exact thing. Lie on a bed, stare at nothing. Stay as long as they could stand it. Most couldn't stand it past a few days. At McGill University, psychologist Donald Hebb ran the lab. 3 researchers built the chamber: Bexton, Heron, and Scott. Soundproofed. Dim. A bed sat in the middle, comfortable enough to sleep on for days. Each student wore translucent goggles. Light passed through, shapes did not. No edges, no outlines. Just a flat, even glow. Hour after hour, nothing to focus on. Cardboard cuffs slid over both hands, past the fingertips. No texture, nothing to touch, nothing to see. Nothing to hear but a low electric hum. An air conditioner, built to mask every other sound. Food arrived through a slot in the wall, only on request. Nothing else. No conversation, no clock in view, no way to know if it was morning or midnight. Bathroom breaks were the only reason to move at all. $20 a day was serious money back then. A week of that pay covered a month of rent. Doing nothing sounded like the easiest paycheck in the world. It wasn't. Most students planned to stay for days. Most left within 2 or 3. Within a day or two, something changed. Some students lost track of their own bodies. One felt like he existed in 2 places at once. Others started seeing things that weren't there. Rows of squirrels marching in formation. Sacks slung over their shoulders. Their own minds, manufacturing a world from nothing. One student had enough. He asked to leave early, to take a manual labor job instead, for a third of the pay. Why trade real money to escape a bed and a blanket? Most people assume boredom tops out at mildly uncomfortable. Annoying, maybe. Never dangerous. That assumption is exactly what the McGill chamber destroyed. Your brain wasn't built for empty rooms. It was built for a savanna, a cave mouth, a tree line at dusk, an environment that never actually went silent. Wind moving through grass, insects, something rustling just out of sight every hour of every day, a bird going quiet for no clear reason. That silence alone meant something once. It meant a predator was close. Total sensory emptiness never existed for your ancestors. Their brains never needed a setting for it, because it never happened. So when that setting hits 0, your brain doesn't relax into it. It treats the silence itself as the anomaly. First, it searches for a threat that isn't there. Then it starts generating its own input. Thoughts loop. Images intrude, uninvited. Minutes stretch into something that feels like hours. What's actually happening in that gap? Your brain isn't broken. It's running the same threat scan as tall grass at dusk. Except now, nothing is there to find. So it keeps scanning anyway. Louder each time until it starts inventing something to scan. That's the part every 8-hour flight video leaves out. Nobody films the part that comes next, where their own mind starts filling in the blanks. The McGill study didn't stay in a filing cabinet. The squirrel hallucination became the story everyone remembered. Psychology textbooks picked it up next. Chapter after chapter, decade after decade. Doing nothing quietly got filed under dangerous. Spy novels borrowed the image. So did films. A prisoner, alone in a bare cell, slowly coming apart. That version of the story never really left. It got copied from textbook to textbook, almost word for word. Each new author trusted the last one to have checked the numbers. Almost nobody actually had. Sample sizes were small. Some of the reported hallucinations came from a handful of subjects. Not 100. The panic-inducing version traveled faster than the fine print ever could. It took another 3 decades. That long before the fine print mattered to anyone outside the field. It took one psychologist willing to actually look, someone outside the original lab, with no reason to protect the old story. Someone willing to ask a different question. Not whether silence caused the panic, but what all those repeated textbook summaries had quietly left out. A detail buried in the method section, not the chapter heading. A detail every retelling had smoothed away for a cleaner story. But here's where the story gets complicated. Decades later, psychologist Peter Suedfeld reopened the whole field. His 1989 paper with Stanley Coren had a blunt title. It accused introductory textbooks of being stuck in the 1950s. Isolation alone didn't seem to be the trigger. Control did. Suedfeld ran a very different version of the same setup. Volunteers floated in a warm, private tank. Water at skin temperature. Thick with Epsom salt. Heavy enough to hold a body up without effort. Cut off from sound. Cut off from light. For about an hour at a time. They knew the exact minute it would end. A timer sat within reach. They could open the lid themselves, anytime they wanted. The results looked nothing like the McGill chamber. Lower stress hormones, sharper focus, people asking to book another session. Suedfeld didn't stop at relaxation. His teams tested the same idea on smokers trying to quit, on chronic pain patients, even on athletes chasing an edge before competition. The pattern held every time. A small, predictable dose of nothing reads as recovery, but only with a clear endpoint. Remove the endpoint, and the same nothing reads as danger. Suedfeld's later work went further still. He studied astronaut crews, Antarctic research teams cut off from the world for months. Not a lab this time. Real missions, real people. People who chose isolation on purpose, for a fixed mission length with a known date home. The same pattern showed up again out in the real world. The deciding factor was never the silence itself. It was whether the person chose it, and whether they knew exactly when it would stop. That detail explains something the flight videos never mention. A windowless cubicle with no fixed end time broke grown adults. Within a week, a flight with that same nothing turns into a badge. People brag about it online. A flight has a runway on the other end, a seatbelt sign that eventually switches off, a door that opens onto solid ground. Your brain can sit through almost anything, as long as it can count toward an exit. Remove that countdown, and the identical nothing turns hostile. Would you still film 8 hours of nothing without a landing time? Almost nobody tries that version. It isn't a flex, it's the McGill cubicle with better lighting. A delayed train with no announcement feels longer. One that's late but honest about the wait feels shorter. A silent waiting room drags worse than a loud one. A doctor's office with no update stretches every minute. No name called, no word at all. Your nervous system was never measuring minutes, it was measuring how much control you still had. Ever notice meditation apps never leave you in raw silence? A voice checks in every few minutes. A soft bell marks the halfway point. A countdown sits on the screen the whole time. Even an app built to sell stillness knows better. It won't hand you raw silence. Take away that countdown, and most people quit in 3 minutes. Phone back in hand before the bell rings. A digital detox retreat works the same way. A published schedule, a bus that leaves Sunday, no matter what. Nobody signs up for silence with no return date. They sign up for a countdown, wearing a calmer outfit. Even a stalled elevator plays music. A stuck one plays nothing. No music. No floor number moving. A 30-second wait turns into a small emergency. Same box, same silence. The only thing missing is a number counting down. 1950s chamber and a viral flight video are almost identical. Same 8-ish hours. Same removal of every distraction. One had a built-in ending, one didn't. So the trend isn't really proof of willpower. Filming yourself for 8 hours doesn't prove you can withstand boredom. It proves something older. A threat becomes tolerable once your brain believes it can end. That's why the same challenge tried somewhere else ends differently. Lock someone in a silent room for 8 hours, with no promise of when the door opens. The calm performance for the camera does not hold. The nothing is identical. The ending isn't. Next time you're stuck with nothing to do, notice something. Which version does it feel like? A cubicle with no clock on the wall, or a flight with a landing time on your ticket, a locked room with no promised release, or a countdown app on a phone you'll get back. Your brain already ran that calculation, long before any of this had a name online, long before anyone thought to film it. Gen Z didn't invent doing nothing for 8 hours straight. Scientists paid people to survive it 70 years earlier. $20 a day in a cubicle with no exit sign. What Gen Z stumbled onto is the survivable version, without realizing it. Same 8 hours, same nothing. One had a way out, printed right on the ticket. One lets you walk away smiling, the other leaves you shaking.